Hey, what's up, everybody? So I'm gonna cover the bottoms up and approach waterfall method for like revenue forecasting, and we definitely capture this within HubSpot. There's a lot of like forecasting models out there. This is the one I'm familiar with. This is the one I like using. This is the one that I know how to implement within HubSpot. But basically, there's two different approaches. There's a bottoms up where everything is coming from, where the controllables are originated, basically the go-to-market motions and marketing, and then we base it off conversion rates. And then there's a top-down approach. A top-down approach where usually your boss will come and say, "Hey, we need to hit this revenue number by this quarter. How many salespeople do we need to hire, or what resources do you need to hit that number?" So you get that number, and you don't necessarily just calculate what you need as far as resources. You need to be able to make quantitative type decisions based on the data that's within HubSpot already that we're capturing. So what we're going to focus on today is the quantitative, and then net new specifically. Qualitative data is hugely important also, and that's basically sitting down with the salespeople, talking to them, asking them what you think the deals will close, sitting down with the CS folks and getting an idea of what's going to renew, what's not going to renew, just getting that vibe and that feeling. So yeah, quantitative does not replace qualitative. You need both, and then the bottom up does not replace top down. You need both. So this is just one way of slicing the pie. So basically, you can slice it based off like time. You could say 90 days for the quarter. You could base it off product type. You could base it off, hey, this is a specific ICP. What's the forecast for this specific customer? You know what I mean? Is there a specific ramp quota for like an AE? You know what I mean? That's just starting. We have to kind of like factor those in also. But this is us like breaking it down. This is just a general overview. Okay. The average sales cycle is going to be a factor. The conversion rates are a factor. The deal size is a factor. Depending on what the average sales cycle is overall, I tend to like to take the last 90 days of deals that closed and then kind of like look at their sales cycle. Like how long does it take to close it once they hit a certain stage within the deal pipeline. And then I do the same thing for the deal size. I tend to go 90 days, the last 90 days. It gives me a better accurate information on the averages or the median, depending on what I want to use. But it's a little bit more accurate than like taking the entire 10 years of data and then trying to get an average out of that. And then one big thing is, forecasting is all about when will the revenue land. And this is basically the monthly cohort. And I broke it down here on the right hand side. And I'll go over this a little bit more in detail because it has a good example on how to break down the cohort. Okay. But this right here is the biggest thing right here, this graph right here. These are our different life cycle stages that are built into HubSpot. The life cycle stages that we have right now within HubSpot, they could do some fine tuning. The good thing is, I did see some properties where we have the MQL dates on some of them, and then we could probably get the SQL dates, and those are like the things that are hugely important, like the created date, and then the dates that they hit these different stages, and then they'll give us our actual conversion rates. But one thing I do want you to pay attention to here is optimize conversion rates and or increase volume. Okay, I think I've said this a couple times already. You need conversion rates. We're always optimizing things. Conversion rates here. We want more accounts to convert to whatever, to an SQL, to eventually convert to a close one deal. That's a never-ending process. Trying to figure out a better way to optimize. But you also need volume. Okay. You need to increase volume, and volume is basically the controllables that we'll have over here in the marketing section. That needs to be increased in order to basically get our number at the end of the our close one number. So yeah, optimize the heck out of everything, but you need volume. You can't be delusional and not have volume, and you think you can just optimize everything and double revenue for the next year. Okay, so these are some of the controllables. Whatever our go-to-market motions are, partnerships is one of them. Whatever they are, and then initially you'll have a lot of go-to-market motions, and then you'll eventually like pick the ones that are converting the highest, and run with those and optimize the heck out of them. Okay, so basically you get the count of leads generated. And then you get the conversion rate. So let's say there's 100 leads that were generated, 100 leads from webinars. You see how you can break it up? You can break it up by paid ads, and then get the forecast for the specific controllable, the specific source. So that's why it's hugely important that we track the source and we get it accurate. So let's say we have 100 webinars, and 50% of them convert. So it's 100 times 0.5, and then we'll have 50 that are MQLs. And then whatever the conversion rate is right here from the MQL to the SAL, and I basically broke down the formula right here. And you keep getting the conversion rate until you figure out what your close rate's going to be. And then once you figure out what the close rate's going to be, then we get the percentage of the actual close one for the specific source, or for the specific quarter, or for the specific ICP, or just for the specific pipeline that we're selling, or the specific product. So you slice and dice it, and then at the end of the day, it's conversion rates, and then it gives you the close rate, the close won rate, and then you take that number, and you can basically figure out what the average sales cycle is, and then the deal size, and then do the math on that. But I'll show you how to do the monthly cohort on it, so you know exactly when potential revenue will land. Here's another note that I made: ask for resources to hit the goal. You definitely want to do the calculation, figure out what you need as far as the resources and controllables, because if you know how much you spent here on paid ads and how much effort you put in the go-to-market motion, you'll know if you hit your target here by increasing the numbers on this left-hand side, okay? And then some companies go further down in the close won section, like time to cash or time to value is what they call it sometimes, because they want to capture it further down instead of just a close won deal, depending on how long that cycle is to onboard people and start collecting that time to cash. And then the other portion that we would need to figure out is the expansion, upsell, cross-sell from the CS. And we wouldn't like add this to our calculation. It would be a different revenue forecasting model, but you want to also calculate that into the scenario, okay? And then what we'll do here, let's cover this really quick as far as like the monthly cohort. So this scenario says, imagine you want to figure out the revenue from the cohorts, monthly cohorts that are going to show up, and basically we're going to pick a cohort. So let's say we have a cohort of MQLs that were created in June, and we have 100 of them in June. So 100 MQLs right here were created, and then we want to apply the conversion rate. So let's say historically 50% of the MQLs became SQLs, and then 30% of those SQLs became close won deals. So the overall conversion rate from MQL to close won, which is a customer, is 50% times 30%, which is a 15% close won rate, okay, for anything that hit the pipeline. Now you want to calculate how many deals we expect. So the conversion rates from our 100 MQLs in June is 15% and became close won, so we expect 15 deals to close eventually. So we had 100 right here, and then we expect 15%. We expect 15% to close, which just gives us 15 deals. And then what we'll do is we'll take the average sales cycle to figure out when the revenue lands. So let's say on average it takes about 2 months from MQL to closed won, and that means that the deals from the June cohort will most likely close around August, because it takes on average about 2 months. And like I was saying before, I like to base it on the deals that close in the last 90 days. So I'll look for the deals that close in the last 90 days and then figure out what the average of time is that it took them to actually close. And then we calculate the revenue. If the average deal size from the last 90 days is $1,000, then 15 deals times 15 is $1,000. So this is basically a version of just a high overview, I think, from a forecasting standpoint. The biggest thing is capturing the conversion points from different sales cycle stages, and then taking that and then kind of like figuring out how much input we need to get the output, okay? And then yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you have any questions. This is just a huge overview, and it does simplify things from a HubSpot CRM standpoint, but there's so many other factors that could be added in here. So many qualitative factors and other things like the business life cycle, what's going on in the economy. We'll never get things 100% correct. And then one important note too is you probably want to have about like a 20% buffer is the norm that I see a lot of like companies doing. They use a 20% buffer, a margin of error. So even if you were to forecast a number, you don't want to give that entire number away and say, hey, we can do this much, because there's going to be other factors involved that you just don't have access to.